Yo, 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 yo. What's happening? Welcome back to Kill Block Score. Here with my man Malachi. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, fam. I'm, ready for the season. I think we're only about 22 days out, so I'm ready for kickoff, bro.
Absolutely. It's coming quick. It's coming quick. And it's going to be a real special season. After 10 years of that four-team playoff, we are moving to an expanded playoff, a double-digit teams for the first time. A lot of people have been wanting that for a while. But my first question is, college football is known greatly for having the best regular season of maybe all major sports, and has this playoff format, this new one, or will it water down the regular season?
For me, the answer to that is both a yes and no answer, and I'll explain that further. Why I'm going to say yes is because, like you said, we had the greatest regular season in all of sports, because realistically, almost every game was a playoff game in the regular season. Because if you're one of those 15 teams every year have a chance at the national championship, and that's what you play the game for,
Yep.
you couldn't afford to lose one game. I mean, we just saw Florida State go undefeated, and they couldn't even get in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the regular season was so important, and it made me care about Oregon, who, they don't play in the Big 12. They may
Right.
be a Sooners fan, but I cared. I cared what happened in Michigan, and I cared what happened across the country, so I paid attention. So in that aspect, yes. But what I will say is it now has made the conference championship even more important. And this is why, because I was watching some of the reviews for the new college football 25 game, right? And they were talking about, well, the games must be broken because they were showing the playoff teams, and there were several teams with 4-3, and one team even had a 5 loss. And they were like, the
Oh
game's
yeah.
got to be broken. This game's broken. And I thought to myself, no, you morons, you just don't understand the rules. The
Yeah.
rules is that team that you're showing me that went 8-5 somehow won their conference. And I think it was the ACC, right? They get an automatic bid to the playoffs. So like before, like, it's always been important to win your conference, but now if you're that team that's going into that conference championship and you think you're not out of the playoffs. You win and you're in. So that aspect, I don't know. I think teams will be, much more hopeful about getting to that championship game.
That's a really great point about what it's done, how the regular season made you care. Because like I think of college basketball, which I used to love when I was a lot younger, and I could care less about it now. But even when I cared at like its peak, they got like 300, 400 some teams, and I didn't care about most teams outside of like, the top major conferences, and even only like the top 10 teams in each conference, if that. And that's in college basketball, way more teams, and a longer regular season and everything. But yeah, the way it was structured before, because every game really was a playoff, because if you lost one game and other teams didn't, it's like, who can you blame? You blame yourself. You lose two games, don't even show up with a conversation, right? Then they go to a 14 playoff. Now it's all the one loss teams are squabbling. But now, like you're saying, expanding it and making it auto bids for certain conferences, the ones with all the money, of course. Now it's yeah, you could literally be a four-loss team, so your regular season becomes meaningless outside of that one aspect. If you're one of those teams, you win your conference, and so I'm yes and no also, like you. One thing I'll push back on though and say is like the conference thing. While it is obviously more paramount at these bigger conferences now, it's also like if you are one of those big time schools, like I'll use Ohio State or Michigan, who I think get unbelievable amounts of just inert credit or innate credit just for being Ohio State or Michigan, every year. And those schools can realistically not win their conference and lose three games and still be in the hunt for seed probably 9, 10, 11, 12 every year, just off reputation, as long as it's 3 losses or less, you know? So that's a big deal. That's a big change. You know, that's a huge change for these programs compared to what it used to be, where it's like, hey, every game. Like I'm an Oregon fan. Oregon last year lost 2 heartbreaking games to Washington, and this year those losses wouldn't mean a damn thing. They would have been in the playoff regardless. You know, so it's like it's definitely a different dynamic this year for sure.
That's true. And then there's been some thoughts and worries, I'll say, about what happens if you are like a Ohio State, and now you get into that championship game. You know you're already in the playoffs. Are we going to start seeing players set out in those championship games? I've seen
Right.
some analysts express worry about that, because at that point it's a meaningless game for an Ohio State who knows, oh, we're number 5 right now or number 1 right now. Win or lose, we're getting in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Well, I only think, yeah, that's very true. And if they were number 1 though, I guess because what is it? The top 4 teams get the bye, right? Top 4, I think, and
Yeah.
then the 8 play. Yeah. So if you're a top 4, you're still going to want to win no matter what. You'll be incentivized to. But let's say you're the Big 12 champ and you already have 2 losses. You know you're not getting a top 4 seed.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
like, okay, yeah, you can sit the game out. Just say, hey, we're chilling for this game. We don't need to play this week, like
yeah.
week 17 in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
So the NFL, yeah. So it'll be interesting for sure this first year. Um,
Well, I think it's going to,
uh,
the one positive, I do think it's going to, as popular as college football is today, which I think it's the second or third most popular sport in America.
yeah,
If it is behind the NBA, it's not very far. I do believe it's ahead of the NBA when it comes to average viewership.
I
But,
think so.
but um, I think it's going to skyrocket, because you're going to get all like this alone. Colorado last year brought in
Oh yeah,
hundreds of thousands of bandwagon fans that couldn't tell you who Rasham Salam is. That's their last Heisman Trophy winner, by the way. Couldn't tell you who he is, but they love the Colorado Buffaloes, and they're all
right.
hyped up about these playoffs. So you get the right teams in, especially in this first 2 years, and this college football thing is going to explode.
Definitely, definitely. And they wouldn't have done it if they didn't think it was going to be a huge money generator. And you know, Colorado's a great example of that. Colorado, that was pure branding. Dion, like it's just pure branding, and they made so much money for the university, for probably for boosters. I mean, I think everyone who's connected with Colorado got paid last year. And advertisements, endorsements. I mean, it was insane. It was insane, and they weren't even good. They weren't even a good team. You'd have to argue that they were an average team. You know, so imagine if they were actually good and in the playoff. Oh my god, it'll break the bank. So okay, moving on. Um, so obviously, college football is changing in other ways. We have all this conference realignment going on. Although I do think we're going to see it slow down now for at least a few years, but we'll see. But the SEC and the Big are clearly light years ahead of everybody else in terms of just stability. I mean, the SEC gets Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, come on, unbelievable. And then the Big gets arguably the no, not arguably, sorry, definitely the 3 of the 4, if not all 4, no, 3 of them for sure. Best programs the Pac-12's had over the past 15 years to join their conference. Pac-12's dead, RIP, damn shame. And but if you look at the ACC, FSU and Clemson, things are getting ugly over there. They are suing the ACC. The ACC is apparently suing them back. What is it called? Rights, list of rights. Basically, their ability to like exist as like as and use sports in general. Like they're suing for the ability to do so. FSU and Clemson. I don't think this is going to end with them staying in the ACC. I don't think anyone does. It's just a matter of when they're going to leave. So Do we think that, or do you think? I mean, do you think they stay in the ACC, or do you think they join the Big 12, or who knows? Maybe they join the two other major conferences right now.
Well, that's the $130 million question, because until something happens with their lawsuits, there can't be any movement. Um,
Right.
if it goes to legislation, it could take a few years before that they work through that. The best case scenario is they settle out of court, but they got to do something fast, because February of what is it? February 25th of 2025, ESPN has to decide whether or not they want to continue their current contract with the ACC for another 10 years. So, you know what I mean? So
That's
something's got to
great.
come
That's
fast.
awesome.
You know what I
That's
mean?
awesome.
Because ESPN's not gonna, if you lose Florida State and you lose Clemson, or you can't guarantee it that you're gonna stay together past February the 25th of 20. I don't see them signing a contract with ACC.
Yeah, I don't either. And they're already making half the revenue on these TV deals that the SEC and the Big are. FSU is specifically has complained that the ACC is costing them money and they can't compete with schools they should be competing with, which is true. FSU should absolutely. They have the talent. They have everything. They have everything to be right there with them, and they should be making the same amount of revenue. That's how they see it, and they think the ACC is the one getting in the way of that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if ESPN is idiotic, or if they say, yeah, this conference is dying, or at least as we know it, it's dying. My
And
opinion.
I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say, as for the SEC and the Big Ten, while they're talking heads, and by saying that I mean the people in the commissioner's office for each league are saying that they're not interested right now, or that their only focus is the 16 teams or however many teams that are currently in their conference. They're saying that now because Florida State and Clemson are still in the ACC. If they
Yeah.
left the ACC, those are two big brands that you would have to believe they would. Either one of them have to make a run at. If not, the Big 12, while you might say, well, they're not able to, they're making the same amount of money as the ACC is currently under their contract. There is a chance that what's that guy's name? Brett. Oh God, what's his name? Brett Yormack and the Big 12 president are trying to work a what is it called? A principal equity deal that'll
Mm.
allow them to pay Florida State and FSU more, significantly more than they would in the ACC. And that means getting Big Ten and SEC money while not having to play a Big Ten or SEC schedule.
Yeah, I think that would be very attractive to those schools. Basically, they'd be paying them more than they pay someone like BYU or Houston, which makes sense in most ways. So yeah, it'll be real interesting when the dust clears. I do think those two schools will end up in those two conferences, one way or another, either together or separate. But it just seems like college football is consolidating. All the major schools are just looking for, hey, how can we get the most revenue? So they're just going to join. I mean, and obviously geography doesn't seem to matter to anybody. You had Stanford join the ACC. I think Cal joined the ACC. Oregon, USC, and UCLA and Washington, all West Coast schools are in the Big Ten, playing in East Coast time zones, and vice versa. So yeah, it seems like it's just a free for all now. People play wherever, go wherever, and the people are going to follow the money. But it would be nice to see them stay. I liked it. I'm sure you probably feel the same way. I liked it when these schools stayed in their conferences. Conferences had like their own style, their own brand. It was a big deal. The Pac-12 dying last year, it was really a death knell to that era of college football. But hey, the show must go on, right? So okay. One last thing I will say though about this: something that disgusts me that I just got into as I'm like trying to start my like preview for the season and everything. These conferences, these worthless schedule makers, they refuse to play a 9-game conference schedule. The SEC has like was it 16 teams now. They just added OU and Texas, and they still won't play 9 games. Still got cupcakes galore all through the schedule. Put at right before big games, big rivalry games, and the ACC's doing it. The ACC at least does some things a little bit different. It's better than what the SEC does, but at least the Big Ten, I'll say this about them: they went to a 9-game schedule. I think a year after the Pac-12 did, which so we're talking about early 2010s, and you're at least playing the teams in your conference, and it's just like you're going to add all these high profile, high resources, high talent level schools, and then you're going to play like 3 of them a year. And it's just, man, it's hard to respect that. But anyways, moving on. Okay. Let me know. We got a lot of new head coaches this year. I think less than last year, though. We had a lot last year. And, but I'm trying to think of what new coach do you think is going to have instant success, and one you think will have instant failure? Let's do the instant success first.
Well, I want to start off with the failure for me, because for me this is an easy one and they kind of play into each other. For me, it's Jed Fish at Washington. I think that Washington's in a lot of trouble. I looked at their roster. They only brought back 3 starters from that national championship runner-up last year. They did bring in some guys from Arizona. I don't know if they, how they're going to play in Washington, so to speak. How they're going to mess with the current players that they have on the roster. I think Jed's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. What he did at Arizona was impressive. But he just doesn't have much, and the schedule makers did not do them a favor. I think beginning with the Michigan game in October, they only have 1 game on the schedule I think they can win. So I think they're going to struggle to get into a bowl game.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see a bowl in their future this year, and the schedule makers are funny. Sometimes like Oregon's schedule doesn't look like anyone was trying to target them, but Washington's just came out ugly. I do wonder sometimes how these schedules are made behind closed doors. But anyways, I'll do mine. I'll keep it in the Pac-12. Haha, get it too soon. UCLA, Deshaun Foster. First-time head coach. I like Deshaun Foster, a UCLA legend at running back. He was a good NFL running back for a few years there, and he's been there for 7 years as their running backs coach. But he's just got a Murs Row schedule, top 10. It's a top 10 schedule in the nation, and that's in the best case scenario. It might be the hardest schedule in the nation. The only team on that schedule who they have an actual legit talent edge over is Rutgers. So that's only 1 game. Obviously, they lost Chip Kelly. They lost their coaching staff. They lost their entire D line basically, and their secondary. So all those pressures, all the plays in the secondary do the pressure and a good play, all gone. So the defense is getting revamped. The offense really was erratic anyways. The QB did come back, the one who was the backup.
Will Rogers, but Will Rogers hasn't been the same since and rest in peace to the legend and until the Pirate died.
The Pirate, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Will Rogers does not look like the same player at all. But I don't even think Will Rogers is going to start. You think he's going to start?
I'm not sure. I've seen different.
I feel like the guy from last year, I can never pronounce his name. I feel like he's going to start. But either way, that offense just isn't going to be doing anything. And revamping that defense anyways, it's with that schedule, it's just going to be very difficult for them to even, sniffing a bowl. If they were just in contention for a bowl, would be,
I think they're a team this is what I will say. I think they're a team that through the first month, I looked at their schedule, their non-conference schedule is very manageable. Then they play Northwestern. If they can beat Northwestern, and then I think I'll give them the Rutgers game. They're a team I think that's going to be ripe for exposing at that point, because at that point they got to start playing Michigan. I think after the Michigan game, the only game I think they can even conceivably win on that schedule is Indiana.
Yeah, that's it. Indiana, Rutgers, the non-conference, and it's like, okay, they gotta pull two upsets to get to a bowl, basically, and they're probably gonna be major upsets, pretty much. So, um, all right, which first-year head coach? This one was a lot harder for me to find somebody, but which first-year head coach do you think is going to surprise year one and turn some heads?
I think it's going to be Brent Brennan at Fish's old stomping grounds. I think Arizona
Oh,
Arizona looks like a team that if they can just at the beginning of the year they got to play at Kansas State and they turn around and they play at dang, hold on, let me look it up real fast. I just forgot, and because I had said if they could pull these two ups, or at least go 1-1 in these games, they can at least go one
the
and one in these games.
Pac-12. You might know this because we always go back and forth on these topics, but the Pac-12 has historically struggled with the Big
Big
12.
12, yeah.
Yeah,
But
they've
see,
struggled
they get
wins
at
and
Kansas
losses,
State.
anyways.
Their schedule's tough. Arizona, they get 2 wins in the beginning of the season, New Mexico and Northern Arizona, but then they play at Kansas State and at Utah. Now, in my opinion, if Arizona can split that, they have a shot to make the Big 12 championship as long as they can beat TCU. Because you look at their schedule: Texas Tech at home, at BYU, that's very winnable. Colorado at home, that's very winnable. West Virginia at home, very winnable. At UCF, one of the worst teams in college football last year, winnable. At Houston at home, extremely winnable. At TCU, a team that was down, but that's the one I have circled that could determine whether or not they get into the Big 12 championship.
You know, it's interesting. The Big 12 is such an enigma conference this year because this is the first time they've ever had this. And really, the top P5, P4 now conferences, this almost never happens. There is no powerhouse program in the conference. There isn't even a team like the two highest programs in terms of roster rank this year are ranked, I believe it's Utah and TCU, and they're ranked like, I think Utah's 35th. That's as high as it gets. Like there is nothing there, so it's a free for all. And it's interesting because my team is also from the Big 12. My first year, or sorry, no, my team's not from the Big 12. Sorry, but yeah, it's a huge free for all in the Big 12. And like Arizona, I don't want to like their chances too much, but I have no reason not to. Like you're saying, oh, this game's winnable, this game's winnable. These games are all toss-ups. I swear. Like West Virginia could win 8 games. They could lose 8 games just as easy. Like I feel like the top 10 teams in the Big 12 all have a chance, outside shot at 9, 10 wins this year.
Agreed. I don't. I've said this repeatedly. I do not see much, if any, of a gap between any of the teams this year in the Big 12. Now, I have a team I favor strongly, and we'll talk about them probably in our next show. But I have a team over there I highly favor, but I'm not even solid on whether or not they can make the Big 12 championship. I just think they
Right.
got the best chance.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, my team that I almost jumped the gun for a second there, but my team that the first year head coach, sorry, that I think could surprise is actually out of the ACC, and it was hard not to. I almost picked Duke, also in the ACC with Manny Diaz. I think Manny Diaz is a good coach. I think you can do way worse than Manny Diaz, but Duke's got a tough schedule and the cupboard's a little bit bare there. But the one I've chosen is Bill O'Brien at Boston College, and he's got a lot coming back. They've got a really experienced roster. They've got on the D line and the O line, they've got a ton of seniors, a ton of size. They have no holes anywhere. Probably the weakest point on the roster is overall speed at the skill positions, which is usually a common thing for Boston College. But they have some guys who can run there. They're not, the cupboard definitely isn't bare. They're very experienced, and their QB Castellano is a true dual threat who really had some nice moments last year. And they're going to be an exciting team. Bill O'Brien does know how to coach. Um, He wasn't bad at Penn State. He left so quickly. It makes you wonder, like, is this guy really going to be a good college coach or not? Hell, is he even going to stay around for a while? But I think Boston College. I think if it's not his alma mater, I think he's got some ties to it for sure, to that program. So I think he'll be there for a while, and I think he's just going to get the most out of that program, and they'll surprise and end up at 6-6 after pulling a couple upsets somewhere on that schedule.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Okay, here we go. One team you expect to surprise this year, that, maybe the general public is, they're not really thinking too much about that program and what they're capable of this season.
I'm going to keep it Homer and say the Oklahoma Sooners. The disrespect that OU is received is just unreal. Like, it makes me really wonder, like, do people just regurgitate the garbage that the four-letter network says? Like people are acting like OU is Vanderbilt or something. And I'm like, do you guys not know that right now the team with the second most national championships in your conference is OU? Right now, the team with the most Heisman trophies in your conference right now is OU. OU like dominated the Big 12, and the people are acting like Texas is like light years ahead of us. And I'm like, wait a minute. In the last 10 games, OU is 7-3 versus Texas. Like, and then if we're gonna, I'm like, do y'all not pay attention to recruiting? OU has out recruited everybody in the SEC, not named Georgia, Alabama, and LSU over the last 10 years. It's not been close. They act like Oklahoma's just gonna go in there and get mobbed, and I'm like, y'all better watch out, because Oklahoma might come in there, especially with the way the SEC is right now. You don't got no Nick Saban. We don't got to play Kirby Smart this year. LSU was a joke. Like, you take away Daniels off of LSU, that's a 4-win team. That was the worst defense I've ever seen. Straight up. And I'm like, y'all act like y'all is just gonna smoke us. So I'm like, y'all got another thing coming. OU is not gonna go down easy. This whole thing of I seen SEC analysts saying Oklahoma's gonna lose half the games they play, and I'm like, are you a moron? Like, because I'm like, oh yeah, okay. All y'all want to talk about is the playoff losses, right? Oh, they lost in the playoffs in the SEC. Well, who did they play in the playoffs? The best teams in the country. You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
didn't they beat Alabama that year? Didn't they? I know, right? Didn't they beat Alabama that year, though? That playoff game?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But if you take away the playoffs and you go look at OU versus the SEC in non-playoff games, OU dominates the SEC. It's not. We whooped Tennessee twice. We've whooped Auburn twice. We whooped Florida. We beat Alabama. We beat the best of them. Yeah, we got destroyed in 2019 by LSU, but who didn't?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Alabama, when we lost the playoff game, OU scored every possession in the second half. Every time they touched the ball, they scored. So, yeah, people are living in a dream world, if you ask me. OU is going to be just fine. I ain't worried about it. If anything, I'd be worried about Texas. And I'll get into that later, why Texas is the most overrated team in the country, and they're going to get exposed this season.
Okay, well, listen. So let me do my surprise team real quick. Going back to the Big 12, I got some things to say about OU and Texas in a second too. But yeah, going back to the Big 12, I got Iowa State. Let's looking at Vegas win totals. I think Iowa State's at 7.5. It could even be 6.5, but I think it's 7.5. And a lot of those Big 12 teams are around there, 6.5, 7.5. But I think Iowa State has arguably, and their coach feels the same way, arguably their strongest roster in Matt Campbell's tenure. And what a tenure it's been. I mean, he is the coach of that program in their history. No one's been more successful. And they've got a very experienced but young team. They've got extreme amounts of depth and experience this year. When I look at their schedule, while they, something like Phil Steele rates their schedule more difficult than a lot of the Big 12 schedules, I'm looking at it, and it's mainly because they play Iowa and out of conference. And Iowa, he expects them to be very good this year, and I think they will be too, really good. But that's a rivalry game, a true rivalry game, right? And that's a toss-up game every year. I mean, Iowa and Iowa State, it's a toss-up every year. Even when Iowa State's bad, you see, and the way Iowa plays football. But anyways, I only see 2 games on their schedule: at Iowa, September 7th, and then at Utah to close the season. That they're going to be even a 3-point dog in. When they go to Houston on the road, they're not going to be a dog at all. When they go to West Virginia, maybe a field goal. When they go to Kansas, maybe a field goal. And that's if Daniels plays all year and Kansas is doing, he's there. And if he's not there, they won't even be a dog. So point is, this schedule is beautiful. They avoided some of the tougher teams. Like they don't play TCU at all in the Big 12. They don't play Oklahoma State at all. Like their schedule is set up. They do got to play North Dakota also now at conference. That's not fun, but they're used to playing the better teams from the FCS. So I think Iowa State with that coach, these are the seasons where he pulls the mask off. Where he surprises people. They've got the experienced quarterback, experienced O-line, experienced defense, experienced everything. They've got a legit roster. This is a strong team. And they've got just as good a chance of winning the Big 12 as anybody else. Even if they lose to Iowa early, it would not surprise me if they ran the table the rest of the way.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay, so moving on to our most overrated. Listen, I'm going to go first. The team we think that, it could be overrated. I'm going to go first. Just because I know you have a lot to say. I think we both got the same team. My team's Texas. But my reasoning is probably different than yours. So I'm looking at Texas and I'm looking at Oklahoma, right? And you're right. Oklahoma's been greatly disrespected. Do you know what Oklahoma's over or under win total is right now? At Vegas,
I think it's 8.5, right?
It's 7.5.
Wow.
Now check this out. Oklahoma's a 7.5. Okay. Oklahoma and Texas, their schedule is getting tougher. It is. Everyone's schedule in the SEC is getting tougher because they added Oklahoma and Texas, 2 teams that are perennial top 15 in roster rank because of their recruiting prowess, every year basically. So everyone's schedule is getting tougher. But OU and Texas, OU last year played 2 teams that had comparable talent to them. One was Texas, obviously. That's jumping up to 7 in this schedule in the SEC this year. For Texas, they played 3 games, not counting the playoffs. And that's jumping to 7, right? Oklahoma's over/under for wins is 7.5. These are comparable teams, very, very similar teams. OU probably has arguably the best back 7 in college football this year. They have a lot of good players. The only place where Texas has an edge is at QB, and I don't even like Quinn Ewers that much. It's an edge, but it's not like anything crazy. Unless Arch Manning gets in, then who knows? All bets are off. But Texas's over/under is number 1, tied for number 1 with all the other big boys this year at 10.5. How is Texas at 10.5 and OU is at 7.5? OU won 10 games last year, but somehow there's a 3-game gap. I'm with you. I don't get it. And when I look at it from the over/under standpoint, or the projected win standpoint from Vegas, there is no school that has a better chance of missing the mark on that preseason number than Texas, because I think OU and Texas both should be in that 7 to 9 win range with their schedule they have in the SEC. Of course, they could both win more. They're super talented programs. They can beat anyone they play. They can. But there's a lot of games on those schedules that are losable. And the last thing I'll say about this is, like, anyone who's played real football or basketball, any kind of sport like that, understands that there is a difference between, I talk about rostering a lot. There's a difference between playing a team that, okay, these guys are hustlers and they're organized and they're doing all the little things and their effort's crazy. There's a difference between playing people like that who don't have the real talent, the raw ability, and playing teams that do, where it's like, okay, these guys can literally just beat us because we're off that week and we're just not there, and they just have enough speed, enough this and that, one missed tackle. There's a big difference between those. And the SEC is the only good thing I'll ever say about the SEC. That conference has a lot of that. It does, and it just added 2 big boys to that pot. So it's they're not easy schedules, and Texas is getting a lot of credit for last year with 7-win start. He's still 7-win start to me, or 7-win start, and I expect closer to 7 wins than 11. That's for sure.
Yeah. For me, the team I expect to underachieve the most, I could make the argument for Texas, um, but for me, it's Colorado. I honestly expect Colorado to really struggle. I really expect them to struggle to even get in the playoffs. Like, or I'm not sorry, into a bowl game
So
to win 7 games, 6 to 7. That's my ceiling for them. I think Vegas has them at 5.5. The last I looked,
yeah,
but um, I'm not talking about the expectations from Vegas. I'm talking about the expectations nationally. Like all you hear about is how they're coming and they're building something. Well, what are they building, bro? You got to tell me if you only recruit 6 high school kids in the 2024 class, and right now when you got the teams like OU, Alabama, Oregon, all the big name schools, the teams that are looking to play for national championships, are looking to be in the playoffs, they've already filled their 2025 recruiting. You know what I mean? Their boards are full. You go over there and look right now. You got OU setting at 8. I think Oregon's in the top 10. Alabama is like number 3. So Colorado has none. They have 0 signees, or 6. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me say that again. They just signed 6 last week. So they got 6 signees. They only signed 6 last year. What future are they possibly building here? And if they don't beat NDSU week 1, which is a high possibility they won't, they're in for some trouble.
yeah.
And all that love that they've received and all that praise and everything for doing nothing. I mean, I'm sorry. They'd be like, oh, well, they only won 1 game the year before. Yeah, well, so did Northwestern, and Northwestern made a bowl game. So like you got to quit selling me on that when they only won 4 games and they were a lot closer to 2-10 than they were 10-2.
Well, they went 5-7. Was it 4-8? Yeah, maybe it was four and
Yeah, it was
four
four
and
and
eight.
eight. They lost 6
Okay,
in a
okay.
row.
That's right, they did. Yeah, that's right. That Stanford, between the Stanford game, yeah, yeah. They left a lot of meat on the bone there. Yeah, they did improve. They actually did improve, but it's like yeah, Northwestern went from 1 win back to a bowl. Northwestern's an established program in a lot of ways. Yeah, Colorado could easily miss a bowl this year, but I will say this about things though. There's like a lot of teams in the Big 12 this year, the schedule just got easier. They don't have a program on the schedule who can just show up and it's like, hey, we're better than you, period. And you have to there's no Oregon on their schedule. They're not getting trounced by an Oregon this year where you're watching the game. You're like, these two teams shouldn't even be in the same major conference division of 100 and some programs. Like that's what it looked like when they played Oregon. Oregon made them look like an FCS school last year and not a good one. So they don't have anyone like that on the schedule. Of course, hey, when they play Utah, they might get blown out just the same. We'll see. But yeah, they've got a long road, and I think if they spend too much time focusing on the wrong things like they did last year, I think you'll see a lot. We'll see a lot of the same result. Right now, I got them winning 5 games, but that's with 4 net close losses. So we'll see what happens with that. Okay, last question. Who is your breakout player for 2024? A guy who you think, no one, they're not a college football or football household name, but by the time we get to November, they will be.
You already said his name, Jalen Daniels. I think if Jalen Daniels stays healthy, I think KU might run away with the Big 12. I think they got the best backfield combination in the conference. And that's saying a lot when you got Ollie
Who?
Gordon in the same conference. But that combination of Neal and
Oh, Neil. Right.
what is it, Hagwig
Yeah.
Jr. Those 2 kids can ball, man. And
Yeah.
then you
Definitely.
got the added benefit of Daniels being able to run the football. They're going to be a very tough offense to stop. They bring back a trio of very good wide receivers. I think Kansas has a potential for not only for them to win the Big 12, but it's possible he could be up there for the Heisman.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is one thing also to mention about the playoff expanding now. Because you can make the playoff, more teams will make the playoff and getting national attention from non-college football fans even. Now the Heisman is broadened. Now, before, like you literally had to play for. You have to play for Alabama. You have to play for Ohio State. You got to play for like one of those top 8 schools who's gonna be in the playoff damn near. Jaden Daniels won it last year. Last year, obviously, with a Robert Griffith, Tim Tebow type year, where they put up so many stats, even though their defense was terrible. But that doesn't happen a lot. But yeah, Kansas could sneak into the playoff, or win the Big 12 outright. And yeah, he's right there at the Heisman ceremony. So yeah, that's a real thing. Something else I've noticed with, because a lot of football fans don't watch college football, or they watch it sparingly compared to the NFL. And the NFL, the run game doesn't matter the same way it does in college. In college, a lot of people don't realize, like, the run game means everything, really. I mean, it's hard to be a successful quarterback consistently throughout a season versus damn near any schedule in any conference. And you look at the rush numbers for that game, and the team had like 120 yards on 3.4 yards per carry. That's like the floor of what you can get away with. And Kansas is going to run the ball very well, especially if he's healthy. They're running for 200, 250 easy every game. So yeah, that's a good one. The guy I'm going with is someone even less known than Daniels. Hope I say his name right. Nico Lamaleva, the Tennessee QB.
Yeah.
Extreme.
I think he's only not known because I think he only played one game last year against Iowa.
Yep, one game last year, the bowl game, and he played great, and apparently he killed it on the scout team last year, and they are excited. And the thing about it is this, right? Just being pragmatic, it's Josh Heupel's offense. Since he got there to Tennessee, Tennessee was such an underperforming program, it was insane. Every year, every 3-year span, you look at the recruiting rankings, and Tennessee was winning like 5 games, 6 games, like just wasting years throughout the 2010s, despite all these good recruits. And since he's been there, they actually are a respectable program again, like they used to be, back in the 90s and everything. So they've been on fire offensively, running that system. This guy has at worst, a top 25 O-line in the country, probably closer to top 10. Who knows? And this is a talented and big wide receiver core. It's experienced offense all around. It checks every box for a smash offense, 35 to 45 points per game. And if this kid is as good as advertised, and he certainly looks the part from the little bit we've seen so far, I expect a very, very strong season. Now, if Tennessee pulls, one upset, and handles business in the games they're favored, now we're talking about a 9 or 10-win team, and yeah, he might be in the playoff and in New York for the Heisman ceremony or whatever. So yeah, I think.
Favorites.
Oh, really?
I did the whole on my Instagram channel. I did all the favorites from the MGM Grand, and he's like
top 10.
Yeah, he's top 10.
Makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense because that offense, what they've been producing, the numbers obviously matter. So, and Tennessee's expected to win, at least 8 games. So, it'll be interesting. The games, like, I think Tennessee and OU play, right?
Yeah, they come to Norman.
Yeah, exactly. That game will be huge. If he has a great game that game, even if they lose, I mean, there's gonna be tons of people watching that game. So, I mean, yeah, I think the Heisman is gonna be really fun this year. Usually, I don't give a damn about the Heisman because I just hate that it always goes to the damn quarterback. But it's gonna be fun this year. It's definitely gonna be with that expanded field that we've got because of the playoff. So, yeah, okay, cool, man. I'm thinking we get back together real soon, maybe 2 weeks, if not sooner. Absolutely. And we do the our actual preview of the season. We could do we maybe do a 2-part, do the major conferences and then break up the smaller conferences, something like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna break down why Texas is extremely. It's not just what you mentioned. Like, go look at who they lost. I'm like, who's he gonna throw the ball to now? Who's gonna run the ball? Like, I'm just who's gonna defend? Like, they lost a ton of freaking players.
I think on defense that's where I think they'll be fine. That's their one saving grace, in my opinion. On offense, they did lose all their weapons, but I like their running back core. I do. I think at running back they'll be fine. I really like their running back core, but the wide receiver thing, the only reason I don't care as much, obviously it's way down from last year, is because I just don't think Quinn Ewers is that good anyways. I just really don't like Quinn Ewers. I think he's, if I had to pick the most overrated player in college football, we didn't ask that question, but if I had to pick the most overrated, it would be Quinn Ewers, because people act like he's a potential first round pick, and they act like he's a Heisman candidate.
I've seen people argue that he's QB1.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, did you guys watch him play football? Like he left so much meat on the bone for those two wide receivers, those two main guys. I mean, he probably cost Adonai Mitchell money. Adonai Mitchell probably would have been a first rounder. He's probably so mad. I don't know if you remember when he caught the touchdown in the playoff game versus Washington. He was pissed off after he caught it. Like, he was basically doing that thing receivers do where they're like, hey, I've been open all game. I've been open all game. Like, he finally got me one. I've been open all game. Like, I don't think Quinn Ewers is very good. I think Arch Manning's better, and I think honestly they need to bench him. But we'll see what happens.
You think there's a potential, like, if Texas is as overrated as you believe they are, and it plays out that way, right? At what point do you think Arch Manning makes his appearance? After the Red River rivalry?
Okay, let's do it this way. Let me go right back to Texas's schedule real quick. Let's do it this way. Yeah, the Red River rivalry, that's about that spot. Yes, there's always that bye week. I know they always have that bye week first. They both always do that. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh wait, no. It would honestly, okay. So they play Cupcakes and then Mississippi State, and then of course they play at Michigan. Realistically, they should be able to win at Michigan. They should. Michigan has way less experience coming back. They got them early in the year. I mean, if you're going to beat Michigan, that's the time to beat them. The best time to beat them, anyways. Texas realistically should be 5-0 when they play Oklahoma. If they're not 5-0 and then they lose to Oklahoma, I think what will happen is if they lose to Oklahoma, and so they got 2 losses at that point, and then they're going to lose. They know they're going to lose to Georgia the next week. I think it's October 26th at Vanderbilt where you see them saying, you know what, we're not going to the playoff. We got 3 losses before November 1st. Let's just put Arch in versus this Cupcake and just roll with it. Or you start seeing Arch getting series. They just start like giving them a series in first quarter, fourth quarter, just giving them random series, and before you know it, after the bye week for Florida, the last 4 games, he's starting all 4 games for sure. And, see you, Quinn. Like, enjoy the NFL as a backup, because he's not going to be a good starter at all. He's not even that good of a starter in college. So, Quinn Ewers is just mega overrated for me. It's hard for me to get around that one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting this year with as much hype as they've got coming in. And I mean, I've lived through this.
Yes.
You know how many times I've said in all offseason, all anyone could talk about was how Texas was going to be back, how Texas was going to finally take over the Big 12, only to watch them fall on their face. And yet again, Oklahoma raised the trophy.
And then they finally did it last year. They finally won the Big 12. I think that's like their only Big 12 title. Am I right? Is that their only Big 12 title since?
They got 4.
No. Since Vince Young, since the championship.
Yeah, since Vince Young, yeah.
Sorry, Cole.
2009.
Yeah, that's right, Cole. That's right. Okay, yeah, Colt McCoy, best quarterback in Texas history. Yeah, so
but if you do think about that though, so those are the only 2 since Vince Young, and that was 2005. So they've only won the conference twice.
15 years is a long time for the program. That's
I know, and I'm supposed to believe. And after, I don't argue with them anymore because you know how it used to be. I'd argue all day. I don't argue with it anymore. I just think to myself, how could they have watched the same games I've watched, the same teams I've seen, and have lived through all the fucking bullshit hype that this team has gotten, and then watched as OU is the one that represented the Big 12. The OU literally, remember that meme they used to have that showed Alabama, the elephant carrying all the other mascots?
Oh, yeah.
That was literally in real life OU, because OU was carrying the whole conference.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
And I'm just like, so, and what is so different now? What is so different now that's going to change things? I don't, if anything, now Oklahoma has even more fire. Oh, yeah. we're in the SEC too. We were already whooping Texas's ass in the Big 12. We're whipping their ass again in the SEC.
Well, you were whooping A&M's ass too when they were in the Big 12. And now they're in the SEC, so you can go
Yeah,
back
they
to
won
whooping
out.
A&M's ass.
They won
Yeah,
out. They won out of
yeah.
the SEC.
Oh, A&M does?
Yeah, they won
Oh,
out.
wow.
They want to go. They want to go to the Big Ten.
Wait, so wait. They don't want. They should want to go back to the Big 12, but they have a chance to win again. That's foolish.
They
Yeah,
want to go to the. They
unbelievable.
want to go to the Big Ten because they, you know what I mean. I read a
Wow.
thing about that. I thought that was fucking funny to me. I'm like,
They're tired
well,
of They're tired of losing to
they
Big
already
12,
know. They
the
already know.
SEC
Look,
schools.
from the inauguration of the Big 12 conference to the day they left, they won absolutely 0 Big 12 championships.
Yeah.
And then by the time they left, they hadn't won 10 games in 20 years. In 20 years, they hadn't won 10 games. They joined the SEC. They win 10 games immediately. Their freshman quarterback breaks every SEC record. You know,
Yeah.
he wins the Heisman. And I'm like, and I'm supposed to believe that OU, who's far better than A&M ever thought about being, far better than Missouri ever thought about being,
Right.
somehow isn't going to be able to compete in the SEC. I mean, y'all have, your mama's dropped you on your head. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I expect long term OU and Texas, well, especially OU, to be fine. The only thing I will say about OU though, this is something, and you got to admit this, that run they had in the Big 12, Bob Stoops' fingers were on that a lot. I mean, Bob Stoops was the face of the program, and since he's left, obviously they had Lincoln Riley, they had a good run with Lincoln, so I can see why an OU fan would say it's the program. But the coaches matter, right? The coaches do matter. So that's the only thing I want. I wonder if Brent Venables is actually, he's a great defensive coordinator, but I wonder if he's, or at least has been in the past. I wonder if he's actually the coach to lead them, and keep that going. Is the only question I have about the program.
Well, I'm more worried about replacing Jeff Levy this year, and it would have meant a lot more if Dylan Gabriel would have stayed, because I think him and Jeff Levy just had that connection from their UCF days.
Yeah.
So if it would have been Gabriel, I would have been like, oh dang, I really hate to lose him. But Seth Luttrell is a hell of a offensive coordinator, and
Yes,
we're gonna run the same principles. And honestly, I know you like Dylan Gabriel, but there's a lot more to like about Jackson Arnold.
Really? Okay. Well, we'll see. Yeah. I watched the bowl game. I watched that whole bowl game with AZ, and they were kicking their ass, and then they stopped, and Jack just started. It was weird. It was like someone flipped the switch. I was like, damn, OU like shutting AZ because OU had people opt out, everything like that, and then Arizona did not. So it was like, okay, Pac-12 homer in me, and then of course the Arizona wound up winning. But it was just, that first like quarter and a half is like, OU was smoking them, and I was like, dang, I guess Jack Arnold's, I guess he's next up. So yeah, we'll see. I think OU's season really depends on Jack Arnold. Jack Arnold is like a phenom, then it's full steam ahead. OU's like winning 10 games minimum, and who knows what's gonna happen in the SEC this year. Some Johnny Manziel type shit this season. So we'll see. I gotta get running, bro. This was good. We'll be back. We'll be back soon for a full preview of the P4 conferences at least. And do some, national championship picks maybe, or at least the full playoff bracket. Probably kind of hard to pick who's going to win. I will say though, it's definitely going to favor who. So the who schools. So, all right. Thank you for joining us. Kill the Box Score. Peace.
Peace.